गणानां त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणस्पत आनः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामवित्रयवतो गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम।
Om Shri Sai Ram. Humble pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagawan Shri Satya Sai Baba. With his divine blessings, we all have completed the Parayanam of Dhyana Vahini chapters 3 and 4. And today, to summarize and answer to our queries, we have Shri Hari Shankar Bhatt with us. Shri Hari Shankar Bhatt hail from Madikeri, Kodagu, Karnataka. He's currently working as Senior Manager Accounts and Purchases with the Medical Care Division of Sri Satya Sai Central Trust, Prashantilayam, Puttaparthi. He has completed his BTech in Naval Architecture and Ocean Engineering from the IIT Chennai and MBA from Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Prashantilayam. His area of work expertise consists of consolidation of financial statements of the hospitals of Sri Satya Sai Central Trust and statutory reports to Finance Ministry and Home Ministry, Government of India. He works along with the finance controllers of the hospitals on the budget, on the capital budget and revenue budgets presented annually to the trust. He's a member of purchase committees of the hospitals. He co-hosted a program named Shravanam Mananam Nididhyasanam live on Thursdays on Radio Sai. He regularly delivers talks at the Satsang Hall in the ashram. He published papers based on application of genetic algorithms to production management, as also on his portfolio selection. So, Sairam, brother Hari Shankar,
Sairam.
Over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nitesh. So, Sairam, to all the brothers who joined, all the students of the National Leadership Program of Sri Satya Sai Seva Organizations. I have been very fortunate by Swami's grace to be able to be part of this program, I think, from its inception. So for that, I'd like to place my humble pranams at his lotus feet and thank him again and again for this grace that is bestowed on me. So, as Brother Nitesh said, that you have all been doing this Parayanam of the Dhyana Vahini. In particular, leading up to this session, you've been doing the chapters, the 3rd and the 4th chapter, which are very, very instructive. Of course, every chapter has its own weight, has its own significance. And like over the years, as I have been fortunate to be able to present it, the summaries of these chapters. What I've seen is that I literally have to read it line by line because I don't want to miss anything. And there have been times when, I read a line, at the office, I would just get up, walk around and try to look at how does it relate to my life and, what is my understanding? It's a very limited understanding, but yet what is my understanding of what Bhagawan said? Because as they said, I had co-hosted a program with in the Radio Sai, which is called Shravanam Mananam Nididhyasanam. That was over a period of 6 or 7 months when every Thursday I would go over to the Radio Sai studios to present and this particular program. It was based on the summer course talks that were given by Bhagawan in, if I remember right, 1991. So my journey, as I remember, the first few times it used to be, okay, quickly go through the discourse, see what I understand, and then, present based on that. But as the time went on, I realized that, every line, it's not just paragraph, every line had something very, very important to convey in that. Like, it's not, so I'm not just telling that, yes, I'm a devotee of Bhagawan and therefore I should say things like this. It is very much my experience. What is more, coming back, so now you have read it once, you listen to my summary, right? And you have your own understanding. Again, when you go back, you'll have a completely different, not only you, even I'll have a completely different perspective, a different insight. So these books, though appear to be very simple, the language is very simple and the content also seems very simple, but yet, believe me, there is a lot of depth, lot of profundity in each one of the words that Swami says. So let me begin by looking at the presentation, right, that I have prepared based on this. Right. Just to check with the production team, Visa, you can see the presentation.
Yes,
no?
yes.
Okay. So let me begin. So the chapter that we started with is the chapter called Goal of Meditation. Right. So in this chapter, as many of you have already read, the different goals that Swami speaks about. Why do we sit for meditation? What is the end result that we are looking at? The very first one that Swami says is tempering the mind. Now, all of us know, all of us are at that age where we very much know like how our mind just keeps fluctuating. All of us sit for meditation. We know that it is almost an impossible task on certain days to keep the mind from wandering here and there. In fact, I remember one devotee, Mr. Ajit Popat, like he would very funnily describe, that Swami would say in the interview room to him that, Popat, when you sit for your meditation, all you think is London, Dubai, London, Dubai, London, Dubai, because he was a businessman and oftentimes his business trips he would often have to keep, traveling between London and Dubai. So Swami said, even your mind does the same kind of trips, London, Dubai, London, Dubai. So for us, it is that most of you can replay your meditation sessions. You'll be sitting there for meditation and then thoughts of anything that happened, starting from that day, previous day, whatever happened that week, all those will start replaying in our minds, all kinds of thoughts, how to deal, that person said so and so, no, I should say this. So before you know it, your mind has already, run away somewhere else. And it is not on the, what is there at hand, that is a meditation. And that is the nature of the mind. Most of us know it. Like one day, it will be up. Your mood is at an all-time high. Suddenly, very next moment, your mood, could go completely down the valley. So, Bhagawan says that a very big goal of meditation is to kind of reduce this fluctuation. It will happen, but to see that, we don't get carried away with that fluctuation. Right? And in Zen tradition, they ask the monks to keep this goal of making the mind like honey. What does it mean to be like honey in contrast to, say, a bowl of water? If you have a bowl of water and you have a bowl of honey. So when you disturb a bowl of water, you can imagine the ripples, that will travel through the water, how long it takes for that water to settle down. In contrast, if you take a bowl of honey, right, you disturb it a little, it will, fluctuate little here, this way, there, but very soon, very, very, very soon, it settles down. And in one sense, like this is what Bhagawan says, that the aim of meditation, the goal of meditation is in order to make our mind like honey, so that the agitations, whatever they are, as they come and go, they do not leave us agitated or fluctuating for very long. So in fact, in the chapter itself, Swami describes, how generally our entire lives are. And if I can read out, or you can see at the bottom, it is written, the waters of a river leap from mountains, fall into valleys, and rush through gorges. Tributaries, they'll join at various stages. It is like our relationships. Many people come and go, The waters become turbid, unclean. So this is what Bhagawan describes, and that this is how our life journey is. It's almost like, you can see these river rafters. They are sitting in that, and this is the kind of journey they all go through, right? So sometimes the waters are very, very calm. You're enjoying the boat ride, and then suddenly there's a sheer drop, right? The waters suddenly become very, very turbid, right? So this is how life is. So Swami is giving like an analogy to what life looks like. And as some of you might have already gone through this kind of adventure of river water rafting, and pretty soon, like by design almost, this is what happens. Sometimes the waters are so troubled that they'll tip you into the water, right? And that's when the panic sets in. And many of you can imagine, right? You say you started your day with a solid meditation. Okay, so what happens at that time in the altar? Your mind is completely calm. Then you come out of the altar, and then there is something or the other which will set you off. Maybe your coffee, it isn't the right temperature, right? Or you got news that you were passed over for some promotion, or you didn't get the grades that you thought you deserve, right? And then of course, relationships, right? They're a major source of disturbance for many people, right? So there is anything. So at any point of time, something could very quickly trigger us, push us over the edge, right? So these are some things that we all experience. And this is what Bhagawan says, that the boat or the waters of life will travel through all ups and downs. And that is in the nature of it, right? It's not, as some would say, like it's not a bug. It is a feature of life. And in fact, many people, their minds get so disturbed, so agitated by this. They think that meditation is the answer to this. That, hey, when my mind is this troubled, like let me sit down and meditate and things will get all right. And many of you know just exactly how it goes, right? Because the very first thought, when something like this happens, when troubles start to assail you, it may not even be major troubles. Somebody says something just to annoy you and you're already off balance, right? The very first thought that comes is a judgment. That judgment says what? This should not be happening. This is our opinion about, something that has taken place. The very first, many of you will notice, like, this is what happens. In the very first thought that occurs is, hey, this should not be happening. Or some version of it, like, hey, why is this happening to me? Why me? Right? It is always a judgment. The judgment called that this isn't right. This should not be happening. There's something wrong here. Immediately we pass judgment on that kind of situation. And we hope then after that, that somehow it is a meditation that will then help us. And what do we mean by that? See, when we sit for meditation, what do? We imagine that, hey, once those thoughts start coming in that, the so-and-so said something, or this situation happened, that situation happened. So our mind starts replaying those scenes or replaying those dialogues or whatever it is that caused us to be agitated. And then what do? We say, no, even this should not be happening. Hey, I'm sitting for meditation. Why are these thoughts intruding? And then you try to fight those thoughts. You say, no, let me push those thoughts away. And when you try to push them, they start coming with even more force. So this is why very soon we get very unsettled in our meditation. And Bhagavan gives the answer. He says that you are dealing with completely an instrument which you do not understand. What you're trying to do, you are trying to tame the mind. And Bhagawan says that you're trying to tame something which is like the task is something like you're straightening out a dog's tail. So Swami says, yes, till as long as you hold on to the tail, yes, it is straight. But the moment you let go, there it is back to that shape of being curved, right? So as many masters, and as Bhagavan, of course, is a Sadguru, many masters, they tell us the same thing, that when such thoughts come in, what is it that we should do? Do not fight those thoughts. I remember once one of my seniors, I was in my first year MBA. So one of my seniors, he seemed to be very troubled in his mind. Many things were going on which were troubling him. And he decided that he will write a letter. So he wrote a letter to Swami, many pages, full of all those things that were troubling his mind. Hey, what kind of job will I get? Should I be here? Should I leave Swami? Some situation at home. All of it he had written in a letter. And during darshan, one evening, Swami saw him and Swami called him. So he gave that letter to Swami. Swami didn't even read the letter. He just kept looking at him. And he said, he pointed to his mind. You are literally losing your mind, aren't you? He says, yes, Swami, so many things, so many troubles. I don't know what to do. And he looked at Swami. He said, Swami, tell me how to control the mind. And nothing. Swami didn't do anything. He just took that letter. I remember very carefully, he started tearing that letter into very small pieces. He would tear it and he would not even collect it. It would start falling on the ground. Nobody knew what to do. It was something very strange. So Swami is very careful not to dirty the place, nothing like that. But in this case, he seemed very uncaring. He was just tearing the letter and letting the pieces fall to the ground. And Swami said, pick up all those pieces. He picked it up in his hand. Swami said, go to the Chitravati and just throw all the pieces into the Chitravati. Your mind will be all right. Of course, at that time, none of us understood what does Swami mean. Because supposing, you go to any counselor or some elder, you have something that is troubling you. What are you looking for? Many of us looking for advice on how to deal with that trouble. Not only troubles, you can look at anything that, so some of us have an issue that we get angry very easily. We have a temper. Some of us feel that we are very lazy. The people all the time, they're telling, no, you're such a lazy person. That is why you have potential. You will not achieve things because you're lazy. Or we are procrastinators, that we will put things off for later. Or we don't feel motivated enough to do something. What do? What is our answer? For all this, what is our answer? We start dealing with the mind, which seems to be the cause of the problem. So those of us who are not motivated, we'll pick up all those books on motivation. Then those of us who feel anger is an issue, we'll go for anger management classes. Then those of us who feel stressed, we'll say, no, let us learn some breathing techniques, how to deal with stress, some stress management, something. All of it is targeted where? At exactly the wrong place. We are trying to straighten out the mind whose nature is what? Whose nature is to curve. All of these techniques, Swami says, you are essentially dealing with something, you are trying to change the nature of the mind itself. So that's why Swami very nicely, at the moment he said, Swami, what is the answer to it? Swami just tore the entire letter bit by bit by bit by bit and bit. And in essence, what he was saying is, let the mind be. Don't interfere with that mechanism. What happens? Like supposing a machine is turning so many gears, right? What happens if you put your hand inside that machine? You lose your hand. And that's exactly what happens to many of us. So this is a very beautiful story. If, to add on to what Swami said, there's a story that is told about how Buddha was once traveling with his disciples to a certain place. It's a very hot afternoon, and as the disciples sit down, the Buddha, he points out to one small puddle of water. He tells one of his disciples, I'm very thirsty, just can you fill this cup with water from that puddle and come back? So as the disciple goes towards that puddle, right then what happens is that a bullock cart, it goes through that puddle and the water becomes very muddy. So then the disciple, he comes back to the Buddha and he says that the water is very muddy, Lord. What should I do? So Buddha says, no, don't worry. The disciple then starts arguing, oh, no, Buddha-ji, Lord Buddha, I'll go to that very distant lake and I'll pick up the water from there. So the Buddha says, no, just wait. But the disciple is very overeager. He has to serve the Lord now. And within 5 minutes, he again rushes back to the puddle and he finds that the puddle, it is less muddy, but muddy still. And he goes back to the Lord and he says that, Lord, permit me, that lake is just a few kilometers away. I'll quickly run, fetch the water and come back. Buddha says, no, just wait. And this happens twice or thrice. And finally, the Lord says, okay, now go and fetch the water. So he goes to that small puddle and he sees that by that time, he's not seeing muddy water there. He's just seeing like very, very clear water. So now, very happily, he picks up that water in that small little cup, goes to the Buddha, and is able to serve the Lord. And then Lord Buddha says, see, other day you were asking me, like, what do I do with my mind? It is always unsettled, always agitated. The answer is do nothing. And this is what the masters, and this is what Bhagawan also advises, that what should we do during meditation when such thoughts start intruding at a very, very fast rate, like a volcano, like an avalanche. All that they say is observe those thoughts, including the thought called that this should not be happening. Oh, my meditation has gone for a 6, including that thought. Even that has to be observed. And that's all there is. Like at any point of time, what meditation is all about is merely observing your thoughts as they come and go. In fact, to borrow an example from a great master, many of you have come to Prashanti Nilayam, isn't it? So you know the Kulwant Hall, and there is one residential building we call East Prashanti right next to it. So sometimes I think about how, right after darshan, how crowded that particular lane, that particular road is, right? But I always marvel with so many people, like supposing I am going up that particular road and there are people coming down, we actually manage to find our way between the people without touching anybody. And this is what one master says. He says that it is like going in a crowded road, right? Where all those roads, you can think that all those people, the people in that crowd are your thoughts. So those thoughts are crowding one after another. They're coming like this. So he asks, like, do we go and latch onto one of them and start walking with them? No. We find our way between those people and we continue forging ahead to our destination. So that is exactly what the master says. Let the thoughts come and go, right? Let them pass. You find your way between those particular thoughts. There is literally nothing else to be done. Do not fight any one of these thoughts. So literally, this is what Bhagawan said. So I was saying, Bhagawan, through that incident of taking that letter and tearing it to pieces, this is one small little lesson that he taught each one of us. Do not deal with the mind. The mind's nature is to be agitated. Let the mind be. Then Bhagavan speaks about the importance of ekagrata. He speaks about concentration and ekagrata, and he says both of them are the same thing, that concentration and ekagrata are the same, except for one small difference. Ekagrata is something that you achieve by your effort. Concentration sometimes happens. Ekagrata is where you point your mind towards something. And many of us know perhaps how Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, he speaks about the importance of ekagrata. In fact, it is said that what path you take towards the Lord is actually not so important. People ask, there is Raja Yoga, there is Karma Yoga, there is this yoga, that yoga. Which one should we follow? It is not really important which particular path you follow. What is important is that ekagrata, the earnestness, the one-pointedness with which you follow that particular path. And this is what Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, he has illustrated in his life. That he took on all these various paths. Like, for example, somebody suggested to him that through Dasya Bhava, like if you are like how Lord Hanuman was towards Lord Rama, right? So you will be able to achieve the goal of union with the Lord through that. And he takes it to heart. And it is said that he himself says that, he had so much imbibed that thought that he is Hanuman and that he is serving Lord Rama, that he in fact began to grow a small little tail. There's an episode of how a very famous Advaitin called Totapuri, he comes to Lord Ramakrishna Paramahamsa with the idea that he will teach him about Advaita. But he did not know that how intense Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's desire for union with the Lord is, that whatever path that is given to him, he will take that I have to go on this path because it will lead me to the Lord. And he says that Totapuri is so amazed that within a few weeks, he is able to, transcend all the levels of jnana, which people take many, many years or decades or even lives to go through. And likewise with Islam and the Christian tradition, whatever it is that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa took up, he was able to arrive at that particular destination. So in speaking about this one-pointedness and all that, like Bhagawan begins to talk about like how we should be able to recognize who we truly are. This is the next goal of meditation, called who are we really? Recognizing the real you, which is a very, very, very interesting question. Who are we really? Because if I start looking at, say, how this person called Shankar, how did he become who he was? Did I have a hand in it? Each one of you, can you claim that, to become the person that you were, like, did you choose the kind of family that you were born in, the kind of wealth that you grew into, the circumstances, the kind of education you had? As a child, how much of a say you had in any of these things? Literally nothing. And over time, what happens is, like, you are literally like this person over here, right? So as you grow, incidents happen, like, so you are told that, okay, you are a Hindu, you are a Muslim, you are a Buddhist, you are a Jain, you are a Sikh. And then you put on the first set of spectacles called, okay, so this is my identity. I'm a Hindu, I'm a Muslim. And you start looking at the world through those spectacles. And then very soon, you are told, okay, you are born into a family with this kind of wealth. This is the kind of money that you have. So you should behave according to that. So then you start wearing the next set of spectacles and you start looking at the world now through two sets of spectacles. And then the third, your education, then your profession, right? And pretty soon you become something like you're starting to wear so many spectacles and start looking at the world. And very soon your touch with reality is completely broken. What you see is your version of reality. And if there are 1.3, 1.4 billion people in this planet, and very soon what happens is like that you'll have so many different billion versions of reality, because each person is now wearing their own set of spectacles, their own set of glasses, and looking out to the world and insisting no, that is reality. So that is who you have become over time. You have your own sets of likes and dislikes, right? Your own, yes. Sometimes our education defines us. Like if you listen to my introduction, it's almost inescapable. Somebody or the other will bring it up that, he is from the Indian Institute of Technology, IIT. That is a badge that never escapes me wherever I go. That's almost they say, huh, so this guy is an IITian. That is part of me now. It's part of my identity. In fact, there's a joke, they say that you're at a party, right? So how do you recognize who is an IITian? So the answer is very simple. You need not go around asking. That IITian will tell you that he is an IITian. So that's how you come to know. So that's so much part of our identity, right? Teachers. You can immediately recognize a teacher or a principal because they don't stop being a teacher in the classroom, or they don't stop being a principal in the school. Wherever they go, whether they come home, go anywhere, they always have to be a teacher. Sit down. No, don't do that. No, don't do this, right? That's just part of their identity throughout their life. They retire, they'll still remain the same way. So pretty soon, we have become something. We started out with just being a small little baby, but over time, like society hammers something into us, and pretty soon we become something or the other, right? You can imagine that you are like this person with so many spectacles looking out into the world and believing that what you see is reality. I like this very beautiful quotation that I saw in a book. There's this author called Kurt Vonnegut. He actually, many of his novels, they look like science fiction, but he takes very deep questions of philosophy and puts them into those novels. So there's a novel in which the beginning statement starts like this. I'd like to read it out. To the as yet unborn, to all innocent wisps of undifferentiated nothingness, watch out for life. I have caught life. It's like saying, I've caught a cold. I have come down with life. I was a wisp of undifferentiated nothingness, and a little peephole opened quite suddenly. It's like saying that, we are the undifferentiated consciousness, and then suddenly the small peephole opens, and then we kind of enter the world. Light and sound poured in. Voices began to describe me and my surroundings. Nothing they said could be appealed, which is what happens to most of us, that, what society tells us about who we are and what we should be, we start taking it in without critically thinking about it. So he said, nothing they said could be appealed. They said, I was a boy named Rudolph Waltz, and that was that. They said the year was 1932, and that was that. They said I was in Midland City, Ohio, and that was that. They never shut up. Year after year, they piled detail upon detail. They do it still. You know what they say now? They say the year is 1982, that I am 50 years old, blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on, right? So this is how we begin as what? The innocent wisps of undifferentiated nothingness. And pretty soon we begin to accept what we are told. This is your name, this is your religion, this is your profession, and this is how you're supposed to behave, and so on. And before we know it, we are a prisoner of what? Our own identity. And Bhagawan then speaks about, one second. He speaks about how we must promote the welfare of all beings. Like, again, sometimes when you even listen to Bhagawan's discourses or you read his books, he's talking about meditation, and suddenly you bring in the welfare of all beings. It's sometimes not, it's not easy to see the connection. Most of us think of meditation as what? As a lonesome activity. You're alone. Unlike bhajans, you're alone in your altar. Most of the time, that's the most effective way of doing it. And then suddenly you bring in welfare of all beings. Like, what has one got to do with the other? So he begins that particular section by talking about how we must avoid the 10-fold sins. And he classifies them as physical, verbal, and mental. I'll just quickly go through what physical meaning causing injury, then having adulterous or lustful desires, then theft, then verbal. Swami says that, false alarms, when you start actually spreading rumors about others, then cruel speech, jealous talk, and lies. And then the kind of mental sins that we have, like the greed, then envy, and Swami includes even denial of God. And all of these, Swami says that pretty soon they drag you away from the goal. They are like barriers to whatever goal you set out for yourself in meditation. So Swami says that we should avoid these sins in our everyday life. And that is a very important point that Swami is bringing up. What is that point? Because, see, most of us think, as I just said, that dhyana happens where? In the altar, like where we are sitting for our daily meditation. But in fact, that is just the formal practice that you're sitting for that whatever time, half an hour, 1 hour, whatever you allotted for yourself. But in fact, preparing the mind for dhyana has to happen all the time. And that is what? By being vigilant, that we do not perform any of these, what Swami calls as sins or mistakes. Because what happens, like, let's say, you do something like, I don't know, which shall we take up, say, jealous talk, right? It gives us a lot of satisfaction, right? It makes you feel very right about yourself, that you spoke ill about somebody, you put them down, right? At that moment, you feel good about yourself. But deep inside that what you have done is something that isn't true to who you truly are. All of us have a sense of who we truly are, right? And it begins to kind of so false alarms, like what I've actually seen in the book, it actually means like you creating false rumors about people. Somebody in the chat, they asked me like what is meant by false alarm. So it's a little loose translation, but actually what Swami was talking about is you creating rumors about people, right? Or about something. So all of this, later I'll explain what we are actually doing when we indulge in jealous talk or lies. But as I was saying, at that moment, you feel very happy. Right? The other person also sometimes enjoys, oh yeah, that person is like this, they did this, they did that. But at the end of it, that back talk, which Swami says, no, we should not talk behind people's back. That gossip that we do, although enjoyable at that moment, every time we indulge in it, we become smaller and smaller and smaller. We become away from that truly big person that we are in reality. Because that's what we were, right? We were that undifferentiated nothingness. Where is this? Yeah, we were to begin with that undifferentiated nothingness. Then what happened? Life happened. One after another. Events happen. Then you get scared and then you do something to survive that. Quickly you build up a personality, and that personality needs things like this, the gossip and all such things to survive. And pretty soon our reality of that undifferentiated nothingness, it fades into the background. And the practice of meditation is to bring that to the fore. And part of that meditation, although it may not look like, that every day, it's not something that you sit and do. Like, for example, when jealous talk, you begin to fall for that gossip. You fall for the joy of the gossip, right? What does it take in order to stop that the moment that desire begins to grow in your mind? So that we shall come to very soon. Swami speaks about that. So that might be the question in your mind, that, yeah, I also know these tenfold sins, right? And sometimes I enjoy being, indulging in these tenfold sins. What do I do? If Swami says that these are barriers to meditation, what is the key? So, as I said, the importance of that, why should we be doing all this? Because our sadhana is not just the formal practice of sitting down for meditation. There is the preparation. Without the preparation, it is reduced to a mere ritual. It will become London, Dubai, London, Dubai, London, Dubai for all of us. Right? And so you should see, I love this chapter because the way Swami builds it up, like unconnected pieces, they start coming together, right? So as I was saying, some of these things, they give us so much happiness, right? Whether the physical, verbal or mental, and sometimes we might be thinking, no, why should I leave those behind, right? So then Swami very quickly, he shifts to what is the key to true happiness. He leaves that particular question as if unanswered. He's just keeping it there out hanging, and then he moves very quickly to the key to true happiness. Most of us are after this, isn't it? Our minds are so agitated, unsettled, anxieties, worries, and we see that happiness is a goal to achieve. We have to. So somebody says meditation is a method to arrive there. So what is the key to true happiness? Like from what do we source our happiness? So there's this very beautiful illustration that is given to us, right? It will come back to that old question called, like, we are agitated with thoughts and then we try to sit and work on those thoughts. Or we have got so many shortcomings. As I said, we are ill-tempered, we are lazy, we are procrastinators, we gossip, right? And then we spend our entire lives working on those weaknesses, trying to somehow become better. Somebody gave the example of Gandhiji. So Gandhiji, as we know, he fought for our freedom, and he was a lawyer. He was a barrister by profession. So many of you will not believe that the very first time that he stood in front of a judge, he describes that how his knees started shaking and his voice started faltering. He could not even remember the arguments that he had prepared to speak in front of the judge. He was, in fact, he had so less confidence that we cannot even understand how a person like that decided that he would want to become a lawyer. And the same is true of many of us. Like, say, somebody says, you should go do meditation, or you should become somebody great, right? Spiritually, you should be evolved. But some of us feel that I know what I am like. I know the kind of thoughts that I get. I know the kind of actions that I indulge in, right? So am I eligible to even aspire for such a spiritual goal, right? And so many of us again start working on those weaknesses, saying that, first let me become, a more, what shall I say, a more pure person, or let me become a less lazy person. Let me become a more motivated person. And many of you know it has not worked. You already lived 20, 30 years of your life, and none of it has worked. None of these methods have worked for you. And without you knowing it, many of you are part of the Seva organization. Bhagawan is actually very subtly indicating the key to true happiness for you. So let me consider this red line as all those problems that either are there in your life or you think are your shortcomings, the obstacles that you are trying to overcome in either your daily pursuit or your spiritual pursuits, right? So Bhagavan says that he will put a puzzle in front of you. He says that, look, all these problems are there like a line. Now, how do I make this line shorter? So that's what we want to do. No? These are our problems or our obstacles. How do I erase that line, or how do I make it so small to be insignificant? But I will not give you a duster. I will not give you an eraser. Then how will you do it? That is a puzzle that we have. That's what we are all trying to do. Bhagavan says that the answer is not working on that line. He says instead, draw a bigger line next to it. How do you make that line smaller? Draw a bigger line next to it. And that's what Bhagavan indicated to all of us. That the key, really the key to true happiness is not working on your problems. It is on taking on problems that are much, much bigger than you are. Look at what Bhagavan did. He said, look at the plight of all those people, the poor people, the lower middle class people who cannot afford healthcare, quality healthcare. He said, that I will solve that problem. I will open up hospitals that will, address that huge problem of affordable healthcare. Even education. Like I know people who are very, very dear to me, but they do not have the resources to study, right? They've come from very remote parts of another country to this country. They stay in they grew up as kids in a mountainous area. They're by some Swami's grace, they were brought over here. And today I can see that they are all aspiring to a bright future, which they could not have got anywhere else. Why? Because Bhagawan created educational institutions through which they could rise above that poverty, above the lack of resources, above the lack of, the what we take granted for, the privileges that we have. I can see that in a few years down the line, these people are so dear to me that they will all have very good lives, that will be able to earn, they themselves will be able to contribute to society. Why? Because Bhagawan decided that he will open institutions, education institutions, where quality education will be given free of charge. I have been through it, and I'm so proud that these people who are so dear to me, they're able to make a change in their lives because of these institutions. And in that lies the key to true happiness. This is the paradox of happiness. The first law, if I could say, of happiness is this: that the pursuit of happiness is almost a guarantee that you will not achieve it. The moment you start chasing happiness, like if you go to nowadays any of the various self-help gurus, self-help books, what do they talk about? They talk about you pursuing happiness. Do you know the inherent contradiction in that? The moment you start chasing happiness, you know what you're telling your mind? I'm not happy. You're going on telling them, whenever you chase something, do you say, I'm happy and hence I'm chasing happiness? No. Why are you chasing happiness? Because you're telling yourself, I'm not happy. Then it's an absolute guarantee that you'll not achieve happiness while running behind happiness. So Bhagavan says, forget about that red line. You draw the much bigger line. And here is a very beautiful second law. A better way may be. We are not saying that this is the truth of life, but consider that a better way may be to try to stretch your motivations past your emotions and to accept that life is not about making yourself feel better, but also creating the conditions under which more others can feel better about themselves. I'll repeat that part because it's a little bigger paragraph. A better way may be to try to stretch your motivations past your emotions. So how many of us are dealing with emotions? I want to feel better about myself. I want to feel less anger. I want to feel less jealousy. So he says it's not about keeping your motivation of your life only to deal with your mind and your emotions. It is to accept that life is not about making yourself feel better, but also about creating the conditions under which many others can feel better about themselves. This is in fact the key to happiness. And I'm not saying this out of, I'm not parroting something that I've read somewhere else. This I have seen with my own life. Last year itself, I recall, so right now, if I look at my life, the way it is, like almost anything that I had desired, like the kind of house that I stay in, the kind of money that I have in the bank account, the kind of car that I have, like I'm quite content with what I've got. I even 5 years ago, I could not have dreamt that these would come in my way, but they are there, right? And also, I had a dream of to be able to visit a beautiful place like Kashmir. So last August, I remember I was in Kashmir. I'm sitting there, looking at the beautiful hills around me, tall hills, a beautiful stream, a river called Lidar, I was sitting at its banks, but I was yearning to go back and be with, with the people whom I love the most. I realized that, and these people are not very, they're not very well off. But what gave me happiness, I remember, was being able to make a difference in their lives. It was not, so I had achieved my dream. Like, I'm sitting in Kashmir, one of the most beautiful places in the world. Am I feeling happy? No. My mind is going back to that period in my life where I was able to make a difference to people. And I realized that is when I was happiest. Not when I was able to build a big house, not when I was able to drive a car, not when I could see the bank balance filling up, but when I could make a difference to people, whether I had money or not. That was when I was happiest. So this paradox of happiness, right, is in a sense, that is what Swami is speaking about when he says that it is welfare of others. That is where true happiness lies. What has this to do with meditation? Right? Because what this is doing is giving us an option to live two kinds of lives. One is a life given by your identity. Which identity? The one with all the spectacles that you started wearing one upon the other throughout from your birth. Right? And in many of you can identify what happens in that life given by identity. You'll be running after satisfying what? Your petty desires. Avenging past insults, that somebody said something in your past 20 years back. Your brother, father, mother, husband, wife, somebody said something, cut. That relationship got broken. I will not talk to that person. I'll sever that relationship. I'll move on. Where is this happening? In that life given by your identity. That small petty self, no? You want to make that happy. Narrow-minded, selfish life. That is what is the life given by your identity. That small, cruddy little self that you have constructed over these past 2 or 3 decades of your life. And in contrast, Bhagawan gives us this possibility, huge possibility. He says, why do you want to live a life so small? Live a life of love and service. Live a life where you are always empowering people around you, making them feel big about themselves, making their lives better, making a difference in their lives. There is this, I forget the name of the person. I think his name was Suresh from Visakhapatnam. Some people might know. I had met him, so I had gone to Vizag and I wanted to visit that scenic spot over there. What hills is it called? I can't remember. It starts with A, some hills, right? So I wanted to visit that particular place. And when I went over there, by some coincidence, this person recognized me. He says, "You're from Puttaparthi, come. I want to take you deep into these hills, and I want you to meet some tribals, right, whom we have been serving for all these years, right?" So he takes me over there, and on the way, I realized, that he has spent his entire life trying to make water available for all these people. Araku Valley, yes, thank you. Yeah. Right. So he has spent a lot of his life, a lot of his youth in making drinking water available to these people of this Araku Valley. He has, pulled in money. He has constructed pipes. He himself, with his friends, his brothers and all, he puts those pipes together. So he'll find a water source somewhere at the top of the hill and he'll connect pipes down to that small little village. He'll construct a small tank for them and make drinking water available to them. So they don't have to climb all that distance, right, with pots of water, etc. So he's making a difference to their lives. And, this person was somebody who had cleared the state service commission at the top of the rank. Like he was the top ranker in that particular examination. The first 6 months of his life, he was given a posting in the chief minister's office. And he had a beautiful career ahead of himself. And at some point of time, he decided, no, this is not the life that I think will give me true happiness. So he actually desired, and he got a posting back into this tribal, area, the Araku Valley, where he decided he would dedicate his life to making their lives better. So I asked him, you had a great life in front of you. You could even go for these, international trips that very often the government people go to. You would have grown your bank balance like anything. And he says, Anna, when I looked at all these things, I also imagined that what kind of life I would have if I continue with this kind of career in the chief minister's office, right? He said, whatever it is, I could not find that rasamu he was saying there's no juice in that life. He could not find the joy. He could see money. He could see foreign trips. He could see a great life, a great career ahead of him, but he could not find joy in that. He says where he found joy was beyond himself. See, what are all these promotions, that salary, all of this is for whom? For the identity, to make your identity happy. And you chase that life, time after time, the next promotion, the next, increment in your salary. How long did that satisfaction last? He says, I didn't find joy in that. He says, I found true joy in being among those tribals, in being able to, Paderu Murti, correct. So he found real joy in being able to serve them. And that's what is your leadership course all about. The leadership course, and that's why they're asking you to read Dhyana Vahini, is because it is carrying all these secrets about how leaving a life given by identity behind. It will come up every now and then, it will come up. But how you leave that and you choose a life given by possibility. And what is the tool to get there? Bhagawan calls it viveka, discrimination. You have to literally keep talking to yourself. That's what champions do. If you notice champions playing tennis, who are on the cricket field, you'll notice that they're constantly talking to themselves. What are they talking about? Because their mind is saying something. Hey, you cannot do this. No, this is not what you were made for. No, why don't you go sit happily in that chair, drink some? Why are you out in this field? Why don't you go and earn some money? Why are you doing this? And that's where the viveka comes in. Why? Just when you start gossiping, or just when you're about to say something, jealousy or whichever one of those sins that Swami spoke about, that is where we have to practice viveka. I'm not saying it will come automatically. That practice, we have to begin that practice of talking to ourselves. What should we tell ourselves? Is this something that is in line with what I'm trying to do with my life? With the life that Swami is preaching? Is it in line with his teachings? Is it in line with what my elders in this Sai organization are telling me? That is what is discrimination. Bhagawan actually speaks about it. If you read there is a couple of paragraphs where he actually tells us what discrimination is about. Swami says, talking to yourself, ratiocination, he says. Basically, not, immediately jumping to do something. There is a book which I would highly recommend called Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow by an author called David Kahneman. And this is the Western version of what we would call as discrimination. It takes that intellectual thinking. It needs it. We can't avoid it. That thinking fast is our natural thing. That's what the brain does. That moment, I have this desire, I have to immediately take care of that desire. Thinking slow says, no, take it easy, right? Let's talk to ourselves. Let's see, let's get reasonable. Let's sit down with ourselves. This is what my mind is telling me. But is this who I truly am? Is this the possibility that I have invented? Bhagawan says, live a life of love and service. Or I have taken up this leadership. Is this in line with that? That is what Viveka, that is what discrimination is about. Talking to yourself and choosing between these two. There's a life given by identity and a life given by possibility. Which one shall I take up? And this is something that I myself have to encounter day after day after day at office with the people I'm around, because I'm not a great person. I'm not an evolved person. I too feel that I have these petty desires. I want to get back at that guy. He said something like this. I also want to get back at people. I want to say something insulting to people, put them down. I'm very good at that. But I have to choose. I constantly have to tell myself, no, I am not that small little person. This is not what I have given my life to. And that is where I have seen the number of times where my brain has suggested something very nasty to say, right? Where I'll imagine that, okay, by saying this, I have put down that person and, hey, I have become great. I realized over time that the moment I say, okay, tell my brain, yes, thank you for sharing that thought. Thank you very much. But maybe I'm not going with that, right? I'm not trying to fight with that thought, but I'm just saying, yeah, thank you, but maybe I'm not going with it. Thanks, but no thanks. I've seen that I have got more joy out of not acting on those. Because sometimes, as I said over here, these avenging past insults, they may be imagined. The spectacles I talked about, that reality which I spoke about, many times there are things that you are interpreting as happening, which are not really happening. People said something. My father says that, hey, you didn't iron your shirt properly. I'll be like, you don't tell me what to do. But that's not what he's saying. All he said was, your shirt is not ironed. That's all he said. He didn't say that you don't know what you should be doing. You don't know how to iron your shirt. That's not what he said. But see, the kind of spectacles that you wear, that's what you will hear. And that is the thing that, the kind of meditation, this is the goal of meditation. This is what happens in meditation, that over time you get that clarity. You begin to recognize who you truly are. You're able to, on a live situation, you'll be able to very quickly move between that life given by identity and the life given by possibility. And Bhagawan, you should read that particular section somewhere toward the end of the 4th chapter. I don't have the book open in front of me right now. But he says that, we should not get carried away by leaders or the kind of people around us who are loud. They sometimes we mistake that to be true leadership. So those who are good at speaking, those who are very loud and, quick doing something, right? The egoistic people, sometimes we get carried away by that. Hey, that's a true leader. The arrogance. In fact, there's a beautiful book written by Jim Collins, the author called Jim Collins, which says good to great. He analyzes how companies have gone from being like reasonably good to great companies. And he says one of the things that such companies had is what he calls as level 5 leadership. And he analyzed these leaders and look at the kind of characteristics, the values that they had. You will not even recognize this. Humility in a leader. He says modesty. I mean, they would not even, many of the TV interviewers didn't even know that such leaders existed, but they brought fantastic results to their company. All of you know about, say, Lee Iacocca, big names. He's not talking about them. They didn't create great companies. Their companies were great for a short while, but that greatness which lives even after they go, right? Indomitable will, they coupled with humility, right? Why that indomitable will? Because they channel their ego needs away from themselves into the larger goal of the institution. And they would credit others for good results. They would not say that this happened because of me. They would say either good luck, or they would say because of my very good subordinates, right? And looking in the mirror for taking responsibility. If something went wrong, they would say the buck stops here. It's with me. The responsibility lies with me. So these are the hallmarks of great leaders. And this is by their analysis, looking at the kind of results the companies delivered, not airy-fairy, based on the speeches they gave. It's not based on that, on the results that they provided. So Bhagawan says that this kind of leadership is what comes as a result of you being able to meditate and get connected to who you truly are. So that is the goal of meditation, to get rid of all that muck, all those spectacles that you have created and put on, and then lead it away. Right? And with this, the third and the fourth chapters, very, very profound, very deep chapters, if you ask me. I would actually love to be able to go through it again or hear your insights from that. It is actually the grace of Bhagawan and the good fortune of having met people like Gopai in the past. Right? When I was a youth, I was fortunate to work with him in the Hyderabad youth when I was maybe 17 or 18 years old. And through that was my stepping stone. That's what grew my interest in being part of Bhagawan's institution. I could see what it was to be Bhagawan's student through being in the Hyderabad youth. And through that, it suddenly opened up a life which I never thought was possible for me. So, and I have nobody else to thank but Bhagawan for bringing me such very good company, for being in the company of such good people. And that is what you are all enjoying through this National Leadership course. You all know the value of the kind of company that you are keeping right now. It is unlike anything else in the world. Over in the world, they will ask you, how much have you grown inside? They'll only ask you, how much did your bank account grow? But people like this in the organization, only they are concerned. How are you growing? How are you evolving? Nowhere in the world will you meet people like this. And we should all be grateful to Bhagawan for having brought us into such great company. Right. So I would place my effort, my thoughts, my mind, my everything at the lotus feet of my beloved mother, Bhagawan. And thank you everyone for patiently listening. I unfortunately can't see your faces. I wish I could have been physically there with you. As I was for some of the sessions, the past leadership courses. But I surely hope to meet you all as soon as possible here in Prashanti Nilayam. And I thank all of you for this opportunity to be of service to each one of you. Sai Ram. I believe that now we are open to question answers. So are there any questions that would like to be addressed? I believe that there was a Google sheet that was circulated and only 2 questions came up. In one way, I'm proud to be in such enlightened company also. How to get inward vision in life? Just a second, Ganesh. Right now, I'm just addressing what was already spoken. I mean, question that I've already received. Right? So one of the questions was that how to get inward vision in life, because this is something Swami speaks about in the second chapter that we dealt with. So this inward vision, yes, definitely it is a goal of meditation. And I probably have spoken about it in some sense that to develop inward vision, the first and most important thing is definitely recognizing the kind of poison that is there in what we have in our hands, in the indulging our senses. There's actually poison. The kind of lives that we lead, the kind of sense, sensory attachments that we have, right? So most of it is poison. So to first recognize, as they say, that you should be able to know that you're holding poison in your hand. The moment, or a snake in your hand. The moment you know that, that moment you will let go of it. So you have to start by actually contemplating, right? Just a simple thing. I'll tell you many. It's a small fact that many of you know, right? So many of you work very hard at your jobs or your academics, etc. If I tell you that you need to take rest, you need to reinvigorate yourself, what will you do? You'll say, I'll go on a vacation. Somebody pointed out that what has actually happened is you have overloaded your senses, right? And then to get rid of that, instead of giving rest to the senses, what are you doing? You're going for a vacation and again giving more load to your senses. That's why you come back from vacation, you're still feeling tired and fatigued. So in a sense, that is what is the first step to this inward vision. Many of us go to the outward vision thinking that, hey, that is where my happiness lies. But at some point of time, you begin to notice that, no, that is not doing, it is not serving the purpose. So let me start by looking at what is this inward vision. And that's where Swami says that it is in the depths of silence that the voice of God is heard. What is that silence? So that first silence is cutting off all the sensory inputs, that partying, that wild kind of life, that is something that you have to cut off. You have to give time to your own self. And when you do that, right, slowly it will open up that world of who you truly are. Like I can only give the example of something like Vipassana meditation. So there they will, they'll give you very little to eat. You will not, your cell phones, your lives are in your cell phones. They're taken away from you. And then you're not allowed to talk to anybody for a minimum of 10 days. The course might last 30 days, right? And that's when, like when you said, like you, for the first time, you begin to, first 2-3 days, they say you begin to actually feel those sensations in your body that you never felt before. And after that, the thoughts that start surfacing, right? You begin to see such thoughts that you never knew existed. The kind of clarity, who you truly are. The insecurities, anxieties, worries that are inside you, first they begin to surface. And then you see your life with a lot of clarity. That's why it is very important, this inward vision. And insight, actually, one person who did that meditation, she told me this. She was so much into service. Like people would say, oh my God, she helped so many people. But I knew that lady, she was having like a lot of troubles in her life. Troubles meaning like she was mentally troubled. And somewhere she said that during that meditation, she realized that the reason she's trying to serve that many people, it was not because she wanted to help those people. She said that I wanted to basically escape from the troubles in my mind. That was my escape route. So that was the insight she got. She was not really trying to help people. And once she realized that, that is when she truly started helping people. So there is value in looking for that. Right. Okay. So any other questions? Ganesh, I think Ganesh is.
Sir.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the detailed explanation of this chapter 3 and chapter 4. And I'm really fortunate to know Telugu as I'm from Andhra. And as you mentioned in your starting words, every word or every sentence in the book to be read twice or thrice on different situations, it will really teach us many things. And I'm just doing the same thing, following Swami's Telugu version of the Dhyana Vahini on the PDFs that brothers are sharing in the group. And I just have a small confusion in the 3 strategies that Swami told. That is about the thoughts. So in the book, Swami said it is not possible to give attention or pay attention to the thoughts that are coming up at a time. So you have to practice prioritizing them and give the most important, time to the most important thing, and then you follow the rest. And in the second example that you mentioned about the letter, so there Swami is telling just tear everything, or the example of Buddha that on muddy water. So leave some time, and so it will, you will get rid of those thoughts. And the third one is with the line that you have illustrated, the short line and the bigger line. So when we can, what are the situations that you suggest to, because there are three different strategies on the same confusion, like how to control mind or how to deal with the thoughts without fighting.
So that to some extent, that would, in my experience, that would depend on the level of your agitation of the mind. You will recognize it, right? So like I can see even 2 days back, something, my mind started really getting troubled. For in my experience, supposing I have lack of sleep, I'll see that my mind is not thinking clearly. Okay, so at that point of time, even like what you said, that prioritizing will not work for me. So I just let it be. It took me 2 days. I could watch my mind going through all the different things that it was saying. I would walk, from my house to office. It takes about 20 minutes to walk. That entire 20 minutes, this thing only was happening for 2 days. For 2 days, it was just going on. How should I deal with this? That person said this. What should I do? Only that is going on in my mind. And I did not act on any one of those things for 2 days. I just didn't do anything. I didn't even try to stop those thoughts. I was walking past the Chitravati, the water, everything, looked so beautiful. None of that was of any help to me. It didn't stop the thoughts. Right? So at that point of time, it is like that when the bullock cart has just gone through that puddle. So that's a very good time to let the thoughts settle down. And you will know when the thoughts have settled down. So the moment the thoughts, at one point of time, suddenly I found my, breakthrough. Okay. So now the thoughts are not rushing through my mind, right? I have some degree of, clarity, right? So at that point of time, I started prioritizing who I am for myself, right? So that is where that I drew that line. I can now be my small petty self, or I can be the big possibility of being empowering to that person. So that is what would be my priority. What is my priority? So the moment I have that priority, the correct sort of option started appearing in front of me. And that told me what I should do. Right? What is the correct way to go ahead? So as I said, you just need to observe like what is going on. You can, like as I said, for 2 days, I let it be. Not 1 day, not a few minutes, not hours, nothing. 2 days. I just let the whole flow of thoughts go.
Thank you, sir.
Did that help you?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Right. So I'm seeing some questions. How, I can't make out the name. How to deal with resentments if they are coming continuously back day after day, as it pains you as well. Don't deal with them. It is a dealing with them that causes. So sometimes these resentments are like this. To an earlier batch, I asked them this puzzle. So I said, look, there is this, there's a puzzle that you have to solve. Okay. There is this bottle, and that bottle has a very narrow neck, right? And inside that bottle, there is a duck. And you have to remove that duck from outside the bottle without breaking the bottle or killing that duck. How will you do it? Anybody? What is the way? You can, in the chat, you can give your solutions. Many of you must be in software, analysts, all brilliant minds. Give me the solution. How to extract that duck from that bottle without breaking the bottle or killing the duck? How will you do it? That duck entered that bottle where? In your imagination. Pour more water. It's a very narrow thing. The duck is. So the question is, how did the duck even enter that bottle? It entered the bottle how? In your imagination. So in your imagination itself, that duck can come out. Yeah, we imagine the other way. That's all. So who put that duck inside that bottle? You.
Just to add on to this,
Resentments. So yeah, most of these. That's what I'm saying. Like, do not, do not do anything. That's in my experience. That's what it is, right? First of all, do not make it wrong. See, many of us, you are saying that there is something wrong in having those kind of thoughts. Completely natural. That's part of you being human. That's part of the identity that, and it's not special to you. The 6 billion people on this planet, all of them experience this, even great masters, everybody. Let it be. And then at one point of time where you have that access, where you think, okay, now I'm ready to, access who I have created myself to be, that, I'm a possibility of leadership. I am Swami's devotee. I am a Sevadal. I am Swami's student. When I can access that way of being instead of being this small little being, immediately the thoughts, and you will recognize the difference, right? Suddenly you're something much bigger. You can see your mind is settling down. You'll be happy with the results. And you'll start wondering, how come I had all these thoughts before? We have been asked to visualize Swami. It's difficult. If we try to do so, we feel an artificial act. What should we do? Right. Yeah. So I get this question from many youth here, right? Like for people who have seen Swami, it's actually possible, right? But I had this very interesting experience with somebody like this who had never had Swami's darshan. But that person, what happened with him was that he was looking for some way out of his troubles in his life. So he wrote a letter to Bhagawan that, just addressed to Bhagawan Sri Sati Sai Baba Puttaparthi. And he had never really had darshan of Bhagawan. He didn't know what Swami really looked like. But to him, Swami came in his darshan and, gave darshan and said indirectly that I've received your letter. And thereby, giving solace to this person. But yes, yours is a very interesting question that for people like me who never seen Swami in physical form, it is difficult. So whichever form is accessible to you, because Bhagavan is not constrained to a form. For people like us, we are limiting Swami. You are lucky that you are not limiting him to some particular form. Right? So if there is any other God, any other form that appeals to you, you can very well, start meditating on that, because it is not important at all which form it is, or whether it is Swami's form or some other form. What is more important is whether you are pleasing Swami by implementing the goals, those messages. Are you going forward in your spiritual path? That's what is important, not the particular form or the method. Even the form of meditation, the technique of meditation you use also is not important. What is important, as I said, is earnestness, your concentration, your ekagrata. So whatever can make that happen, go for it. Whatever works for you. Simple.
Brother, Kush here. I do have a small question.
So, Kush Bharadwaj, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So many a times, sorry participants, I'm taking this opportunity to ask this question. Many a times we have easy thoughts which just passes by and we don't act on it. As you rightly said, when we act on certain thoughts, then they make an impact. If it's just a thought, it just goes away. But there are a few thoughts which are our habits, or maybe you can call old strong thoughts or vasanas or habit, whatever we call it. or it could be a mindset, which I feel to repeatedly doing that. As you gave the example of the lady who was into service, but maybe something else which was triggering her mind to do that. So how should we, I'm not saying should we discriminate, how should we stop ourselves to do and to reflect back on such heavy thoughts, or, which are like more inclined towards our thoughtful personality?
Right. So the idea is like, what can you replace it with? Supposing I ask you, like right now, even right now, which kind of thoughts that you're talking about. So what would you like to replace it with?
So even if it's like a service-oriented thought, keep serving others, and then you replace it with Bhagawan, or you replace it with focus on yourself. Again, you are replacing one thought with another thought, and you want to be attached to that. And we are also, on the other side, we are talking about don't go with the thoughts, so that you realize, so somewhere it creates an, it leaves us with, it's a good thought, bad thought, should we connect with that, or should we just, how much we should go with the thought?
Yeah. So if you look at the chapters, at the beginning of the chapter, Swami says that the goal of meditation is what? A pleasant mind. Almost right at the beginning sections, Swami says that what you need is a pleasant mind. And who can recognize whether it's a pleasant mind or not? It's you.
Yeah.
So I was talking about the kind of thoughts that are leaving your mind in an unpleasant state. Right. So if it is a thought of seva, or if it is a thought of, so if you look back at that life given by identity and a life given by a possibility, right? So when you say serving others, that is what? A life of love and service. That's a life given by possibility, something bigger than yourself. But even there, you have to be careful. As I said, for some, doing service is an escape from what agitation is going on there in their mind. You're not serving them. You're not serving the people in that case.
True. Thank you, brother. Seems like Gopi Bhaiya have raised his hand.
Okay.
Saram, I just wanted to add to what Hari was just saying. So when your thoughts are actually coming in, you can quickly discriminate the kind of thought that's going to coming into your mind. If you said that there's a positive thought that's coming into your mind, let it sustain. Swami is very clearly said, if a positive thought is coming, let it sustain. If it's a negative thought, then the problem comes. And how do you deal with negative thoughts is something that Swami very clearly mentions again and again in Dhyana Vahini. Let the negative thoughts also pass. Let the negative thoughts also pass. And Swami very beautifully actually narrates a story. Maybe sometime when we meet up, I will try to narrate the story of how, involuntarily our body gets into action with these thoughts. So positive thoughts will bring in a positive frame of mind. That is the most important thing. So let your positive thinking, positive thoughts sustain. That's it. Nothing more from me.
If I can add, I've shared this with the first batch of participants. Like the first interview that I had with Bhagawan, he actually, he was talking to my mother and he was pointing at me and he says, this boy, when he gets angry, his whole body will shake. When I was at that age, right, as 18, 19, that's exactly the kind of person I was. Very, very ill-tempered. If I got angry, oh my God, I would really be like some, Narsimurti, that avatar, right? So I'd be shaking like that much anger, right? Now, what I remember is the way he told Swami told my mother, as if the whole thing is a joke. That, this guy is like this. He didn't try to correct me at all. He didn't say, hey, you have to be less angry, nothing. The way he dealt it is with so much love and in such a, jocular manner, insignificant, as if it was nothing very great. He didn't say that he is an angry person. He just said that when he gets angry, he's like this. So what did he do by that? And what we can do with ourselves? See, many a time When we get thoughts like this, immediately we label, Arey, I am an impure person. Arey, I am an angry person. I am a lazy person. But I'll never forget that what Swami did with me. The moment he said that, you know what he did? He created a space around me where I could grow out of that being an angry person. And over the years, I've seen that kind of evolution that happened. That would never have happened had Swami come and lectured me saying that, no, you should not have anger. It is a very bad thing. He didn't do any of that. He didn't give any significance.
That's how he handles, people like us.
Exactly.
I'll just narrate a beautiful incident.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Yes.
This was in the interview room, and we were all seated in the interview room. There were very senior bureaucrats. There was a chief secretary there. My father was also there. There was a DGP there sitting inside, and there was some gentleman also who Swami had called. He was from village or something, and the discussion was going on. And Swami was talking, and suddenly this elderly gentleman, he had come actually from a very rural. You will not believe, at the top of his voice, he said, Swami, he was shouting at the top of his voice. You just imagine in the interview room, I'm sure when he said, Swami, and his voice could have been heard almost in the cycleman hall where the bhajan singers would be sitting. And immediately, one Mr. KV Natarajan, you know Mr. Natarajan very well, Hari. So, KV Natarajan just hushed him up and said, hey, melliga matladu, Swami unnaru, melliga matladu. Speak softly, you're in Swami's present. You will not believe at the point of time, Swami cut Mr. Natarajan. He just cut him, chop. He said, Natarajan, nenu vaadu matladukunnam. Nuvu enduku madhyalo matladutunnavu? Me and that gentleman there, we are interacting. Why are you butting in? And he looked at that elderly man. He said, no, Chappu Bangar, you start, you talk. The moment he said that, this guy, elderly gentleman, he said, Swami. He came down subtly to that level in which he should speak. So sometimes, these are, we don't need to get into that thought process or maybe a kind of a lecture board or something. Swami beautifully brings out the scenario where you correct yourself. And, if Hari was mentioning his first interview with Swami, that's a beautiful scenario where Swami, without even touching upon that, that habit of his to lose his temper, Swami had very beautifully, maneuvered around that and must have hit Hari's mind and heart. And that's how the transformation and blossoming happens. So all of you who are here, in fact, everybody, this is a great opportunity for all of us. We really do not know how Swami will act upon our mind and how, he brings in that joy within us. And ultimately, that with you, Dhyana, you do anything, happiness is what we want. We want to be that peaceful, at peace always, that is what we want. And I think Swami will play his own game with each one of us and take us forward. That's it from me.
Great input, bhai.
Any more questions?
Sairam, sir, Satish Lizard, I have a small question. Sairam, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, no. I couldn't help notice there was a subtle reference made to the ultimate objective of a meditation eventually being qualitative, especially in chapter 4.
You're not very audible. Could you improve? Could you come closer to the mic? I'm not able to hear you clearly.
Sairam, now am I audible?
Oh, super. Yeah, this works. Yes.
Sairam, sir, first of all, thank you for wonderfully summarizing the chapters. I had a small curiosity from chapter 4. There is a subtle reference that is being made that the ultimate objective is eventually to be qualityless. Although right after that, Swami strongly advises against hurrying for this.
Yeah, I intentionally kept away from that. You brought it up.
In context of what has been discussed today, especially under the head of life given by possibility, it augments more towards inculcating the spirit of empathy and giving back, from where these qualities would eventually stem. In this respect, could you elaborate how this transition from these qualities to being devoid of qualityless would actually occur?
Yeah. So actually, right. So here's the thing. The way I see it is this, right? You begin with, you have a lot of, say, bad qualities, right? So what we try to supplant, we try to replace that with good qualities. Okay. So that we think of that as a way of purifying yourself, right? Or in some scriptures, they'll say that, you have, it's like using another thorn. So there's a thorn that has pricked you. How do you remove that thorn? By using another sharp thorn or another needle to remove that particular thorn from your foot, right? So you can think of good qualities as being that needle which removes the thorn from your foot, which is troubling you, right? Now that, if you see, is still a quality, as in it is still making you something as an identity, right? The ultimate goal of spirituality is to go beyond that identity to who you truly are. So the first, you need a good quality. Swami speaks about in that particular section. He speaks about having good speech, right? Gracious manners, etc. What are these required for? Is to first reduce those bad qualities, the bad tendencies that you have. They have to get first replaced by something good, right? But ultimately, the goal is what? To not be confined to that identity, even if it is that identity is formed with all good qualities. It is to go beyond that. So that's why Swami says that first you have this sagun, and then you got the nirgun. So you got to go beyond even good qualities and bad qualities, where you don't really see that you go beyond the judgment called this is good, this is bad. Right? But to first get there, you have to be at that stage. So that's why Swami says that, in fact, I intentionally kept away from that, because it is really, I have seen that happen with people, like how it damages them in an actual sense when you rush your way through spirituality. I know people who said that we should remove our ego. So what did they become? They became doormats. And after becoming doormats for years, what did they become? They became resentful. So this is spirituality is actually it's a balancing act, right? At every point of time, you have to be very, very careful what you're doing. So do not rush. Many people want quick results. Next day I'm free of my identity. Then what happened? That ripening takes a very long time. You have to give time for that.
Thank you, sir. Got it.
Isa, I think we can close now.
Yes, Shankar. Rikshit, are you there?
I'll take the opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. No words to thank Hari Shankar, brother. You are two in one for us, Hari and Shankar in one form itself. And today, on top of it, we have added, the divine flavor of Gopi Bhaiya too. Adding that's a sheer blessing to all of us. Because listening to all those words, what you have shared, and what is takeaway for me for the today's session is that how can we, be detached to the thoughts and be the observer and ensure we follow the good thoughts and we stop the negative thoughts. And try this exercise day in, day out. So once we feel we are at a pleasant mode and we find the peace within and externally too. I don't know how it's going to transform, but small steps every Sunday, having satsang with all of you. And it's not a theoretical session for, believe us, because you have lived each and every word what you are saying, and we have seen you and others also living the same. We'll thank you on behalf of entire team and organizing team as well. And be the part of this family and keep sharing your thoughts, your blessings with all of us. And before we end, would like to request Bobia to say a few words so that we can conclude the today's.
Yeah, definitely. Why not? No, it's always a pleasure, Hari, to listen to you, and it's so nice. That dazzling smile of you gives a very positive note here. And thank you for coming on board. We shall be meeting shortly also. Most probably, the induction might happen sometime late April or May first week. And you will meet all these participants in Prashant Nilayam. So we will have a one-to-one interaction also with you. In fact, most of you would not know, but Hari and we have worked very, very closely. During my youth days, he's very young as of now. And we've done a lot of Gram Sevas together. And Hari
1997.
1997, yeah. And he was just getting into college, or maybe you just got into IIT at that time, huh? Yeah. So, very, very inspiring personality he has got. And that smile, he carries, brings in positive vibes. So stay blessed, Hari, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you for being with us once again, Sairam.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity, all of you.
Thank you, Bhaiya. Thank you. We'll conclude with Shanti Mantra.
Yes.
Samastalokaah sukhino bhavantu. Samastalokaah sukhino bhavantu. Samastalokaah sukhino bhavantu. Om